Hey, this is Aaron, the Mental Theologian. So, this is going to be a couple things, this video. A little bit of housekeeping, because it feels like it's been fucking ever since I made one of these. First of all, actually, I've had a couple of requests to introduce my cameraman. So we're going to do that real quick. I've made a couple references in the past. His name is Spencer.
Hello.
And, yeah, he's my kid. And let's turn the thing around real quick. Let me take this from you for a sec.
Hello.
So there he is. That's the man behind the scenes right there. So I look at that, he makes faces like Scott. There you go. It's just like Scott Waters. And that's my sloppiness with the hand in front of the camera. So,
I do it right.
you've met Spencer now. We're also going to, this is going to be my contest entry for SMFCptHowdy's autograph contest. And there's some particular I was looking for on that. I kind of had a good story, and unfortunately I couldn't find the autograph. Maybe I'll tell the story anyway, depending on how the time works out. But let's, oh, and at the end I'm going to open up a pack, too. But let's start with this. We're going for the triple, what's it called? Triple X root beer, which makes thirst a joy. Which is a pretty funny slogan. You have to get in that tight. So, I really don't know anything about this one. I found this locally here. It's a root beer, I assume, because it says root beer on the label. And, actually, let me see where this is from. That's always kind of half the fun. Yeah, I made a video in close to 2 weeks. And, just because of shit, you know. And, I usually only drink sodas when I'm making videos. So I'm fucking fiending for a soda, man. I'm so ready for one of these bad boys. Alright, Lafayette, Indiana. Alright. So let's give this bad boy a crack and see how we like it. It's nice. It's almost a little bit of a medicine-y quality that you don't really get from root beer very often. It's strange. It's interesting. It's not what I expected. When I do think of a root beer, like a good root beer, I expected sort of a full mouth feel. Like you take a little sip, and while it's on your tongue, it just feels like it sort of spreads out over the whole inside of your mouth and like release its flavor. And this one, similar to one that I had, not one of the last times I made a video, feels more like it sort of goes right in, and just like the part of your tongue that comes in direct contact with it is where you taste it, as opposed to sort of spreads out. And it's interesting because it gives it, I want to say, a little bit of a syrupy quality, but that would sound more negative than this thing deserves. Because it's actually really tasty, but it's a lot more subtle. It's kind of more nuanced than I expected, really. And, but it's definitely sort of more of a focused flavor, if that makes sense. It's not like the sort of big thing. So anyway, here's what we're going to do. I actually have a book. I have a copy of The Trial by Kafka, which was signed by Robin Williams. There's a little bit of a funny story, and that's what I was hoping to show for this thing, but I couldn't. Especially with Robin Williams dying not too long ago. Excuse me, that's that fucking soda, man. It seemed like that would be kind of apropos. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you on that one. So, instead, what I'm going to do is show off a couple of autographs by Harvey Pekar. Now, anyone who's actually, I guess people kind of know who Harvey Pekar is now because of the American Splendor movie and all that. But as you probably know if you've watched a few of these, I grew up in Cleveland. I mean, I identify with San Francisco as home before my current location of residence. But I moved there in about '94, and prior to that, I mostly lived in Cleveland. And while I was there, I discovered the American Splendor comic. And I kind of have a stack of them here. I mean, there are a bunch. I'm not going to show them all off, but I do have most of them. Now, I'm not really a comic collector, but the first job I ever had, I was working in a library. I was 16 years old. And I came across an anthology of American Splendors, and I was curious because I recognized Robert Crumb's art from the covers. So I checked it out, and I was like, oh my god, it was just stories about like his life. I mean, it's really the experience that anyone has who's ever read American Splendor. But, up to the details, like the fact that he collected records, because by the time I was 16, I was already pretty fanatical about the record collecting. And, just things, I mean, it's funny because as a 16, well, I think I was older than 16, like 17-year-old or something like that. It seemed profound to me. Now that I'm like in my 40s, it seems like, God, that fucking guy was kind of childish. But I do think the stuff stands up, and there are other aspects that I appreciate a lot more, like his jazz writing. Now, anyway, I tell all these stories by way of not only sort of how I got into American Splendor, but also by way of talking about where some of these came from. Now, sometimes, the fact is, if you lived in Cleveland for a long time, he was just someone you were likely to run into. Okay, so for instance, this copy of number 10, I just bought this at a comic shop, and it just came signed. Okay? They had like unsigned ones and signed ones, and I think they were even the same price. I probably paid cover price for this, $3. I got almost all of these just at comic shops around the area, except for the earliest 3 that I have, which I'll tell you about, because this is kind of my best story. And I actually met him a couple times. The first time was actually at a library book sale, where I just ran into him, and I just recognized him from the thing, you know. I was like, oh my God, and sort of gave him the fan treatment and shit. A few years later, though, I had found most of the ones, but I hadn't been able to find the first 4. And so I broke down and either wrote him a letter or probably just called him on the phone, because he was listed in the phone book. And, it's a little bit of an embarrassing story because it was kind of stupid, but basically he still had copies of 2, 3, and 4, and he just wanted cover price for them. Cover price being, this is number 2, $1.15. He had a few copies left of number 1 though, and he wanted 25 for that one because he was running low on it. And I was like, fuck it, I'll find it around. Well, I never did find it around, and if you look at it now on eBay, I feel kind of stupid for not having coughed up $25 for that fucking thing, especially for the man himself. Anyway, the story about this, I was working in this was a few years later than that. I was working in a record store at the time, and I loved American Splendor, obviously, but I was also working with a guy who had been in some bands locally in Cleveland, this guy named Frank. I'll leave his last name, because I don't know if he wants it named, but sort of a local fixture around Cleveland too, although not to the same degree. But I was working with this guy at the record store, right? And so I talked with Harvey, and he like didn't. He was like, oh, you know, I can drop these off. You know, I'm gonna be on the west side. He lived on the east side. I was in Lakewood. He's like, oh, I can drop these things off at your work. I'm gonna be out and about tomorrow. You know, whatever. Well, I had something going on that day, so I wasn't gonna be at work, and I wasn't gonna be there. And I was like, well, I'll tell you what. Go ahead and just stop by. I don't remember how I arranged to pay him. Maybe I left him a check or something. No, I couldn't have left him a check. Anyway, I arranged to pay him somehow. I was like, well, just stop by, and like when you go into the record store, ask for Frank, and just like give him the magazines, and he'll give them to me. So a couple days later, I was working with Frankie, and he was like, oh, Harvey Picar stopped by for you, because needless to say, I didn't tell him, right? So like the guys at work one day, and fucking Harvey Picar stops by and says, hey, is Aaron work here? Because I got this shit. Are you Frank? Blah, blah. So, anyway, all that by way of sort of the build-up. This is my copy of American Splendor number 2. And this one is actually signed to me. So it says, to Aaron. And, yeah, I'm pretty proud of these. This one's actually signed to me, too, which is funny, because this is number 12. I thought I just got those early ones, but, I must have been missing this one at the time and just said, yeah, I'll just take whatever you got. Oh, I knew I left this one on top for a reason. Just that comic is funny if you're not familiar with it, you know? Can you get that at all? Are the captions coming through? You can see the comic. The one guy's saying, how smart is she? I don't know. I guess she's about average. And Harvey's saying, average? Hey, man, average is dumb. Pretty much sums the dude up. One more real quick thing. In my story about the record exchange in Cleveland, when this is actually another one I got from Harvey. This is number 4, where he's hustling records with Robert Crumb on the cover. And this one's also signed to me. But I mentioned in the earlier video that he made an appearance in the back. If you look at that, you know, if you're from Cleveland and you know the owners of the record exchange at the time, that's pretty obviously one of the owners. And again, I'll leave his name out, but I can tell you exactly who that is, and it's funny too. Well, it's funny. Alright, so that's my entry for the contest. Means a lot to me. I don't know if it came across in the stories at all. In the spirit, though, of sort of talking about this stuff, I'm going to sort of segue a little bit here. I'm baiting CD Baby once again. Because, you know, their little algorithms are clever enough to pick this shit out and go, oh yeah, well, we have the rights to that. Like they do, right? Now, one of the things I didn't really come to appreciate about Harvey Pekar, when he was still around, alive, basically, I was pretty much a rock and roller, and you know, he collected records and I collected records, but what we collected we did not have in common. But later on, as I came to discover jazz, you know, he mentions in the books like writing for Downbeat and doing shit like that, and there's some talk about it in the movie, even in that. But I didn't really give a shit about what he was writing about until a lot later when I started getting into jazz. And one of the things I really have come to appreciate about him was that he was a relatively early champion of free jazz. And so I want to take this opportunity to give a little bit of a shout out to Milo Fine. There are a couple things on YouTube. The fact is, for my own part, I'm just not that knowledgeable. You know, when it comes to metal or, you know, rock stuff, yeah, you know, I can go and dig out the weird stuff and find shit based on the cover and say, hey, here's some obscure no one's heard of. When it comes to jazz, though, I just don't have that background. So I was really stoked to discover two records by this guy. Because this is, it's later than most of the stuff I normally get. This record's from the late 70s or early 80s, right around there. 81, actually. And the guy's still around and performing. He has a website and that sort of thing. There's a local guy. I know very little about him, but he's a local guy from the Minneapolis area, apparently. And one thing I did learn collecting metal is that when you see a cover like this, you don't pass it up without at least hearing what the hell it sounds like. And that goes just as much for this, which is the only other one that I own by him. This is just some awesome free jazz, though. It's definitely a little bit more challenging, you know. It's from sort of a musicological standpoint, it probably has more in common with the more difficult Coltrane albums than like you know, something like Ornette Coleman or something like that, which is a little bit more sort of directly tuneful. But it doesn't hit you over the head like that. It's like relatively mellow free jazz, which is a really unusual juxtaposition, because like if you listen to something like this, I mean, this is not, you know, this is not bop or anything even close to bop. But it's not something that hits you on the side of the head the way like Albert Ayler does or something like that. And I love Albert Ayler, and I'm not going to talk shit about him for a second. But I find the sound on these records to be really distinctive. And I just thought I really recommend, if you're interested in jazz at all, free jazz in particular, Milo Fine, man. That's some good shit. Now, a couple other new arrivals here by Joe Harriott. It's another Harvey Pekar connection, because apparently he championed this guy really early on. This record, this is a UK jazz guy, and apparently this record, there's a brand new reissue. Abstract was the first non-American record to ever get a 5-star review in Downbeat magazine, and that review was written by Harvey Pekar. These are they're abstract, sort of, in a way, especially this one, Freeform, which is a little bit earlier. This one you can kind of hear the boppy stuff going on in it, like that's sort of where it comes from, that the musicians have the background in that, but it's starting to lean in the direction and sort of feel past that, and that comes even more to fruition on this record. And again, if you're interested in this stuff, but you don't want to do like the balls out, you know, you don't, I keep wanting to say Coltrane or, you know, Albert Ayler, but you know, Pharoah Sanders, I think, is kind of overrated, so I don't want to go there. If, like, the Archie Shepp records, though, like those kinds of balls-out records, if they're too much for you, these are a pretty good starting point on the one end, and Milo Fine sort of is on the other, just to work his name back into it. You can tell I didn't put my shit away from the last videos either. It's still the same records. Alright, so we got our Joe Harriott covered, we got our Milo Fine covered. There's one more order of business here. That's what I got to pack. From Mr. Steve, the Harmless Rebel. And I think I know what's in here, but I'll tell you. I wanted to open this bad boy right away. This is the first chance I've had to make a video, and this thing's been sitting there just sort of like, it was smiling at me for the first couple days, then it was sort of grimacing at me, then it was sort of sneering at me, and it kind of went on from there to just sort of giving me the finger, because man, I've been wanting to open this thing up, but I had to make the video and do it right? So, let's see what's in here. I'm reasonably sure it's going to be on topic. Oh my god. Alright, here we go. Yeah, there's something else in here too. Oh, holy shit. Alright. So this, okay, so first of all, we talked about this. Alright, Steve asked me if I needed this. This is one of those nice reissues. Speaking, again, on topic, this is a record that is in the free jazz direction. It's definitely more challenging than, you know, a lot of the other stuff on Blue Note, which is more like straight ahead bop. But it probably has more in common with sort of the more experimental Jackie McLean records or Gratian Montcore than, you know, again, like Albert Eiler or someone like that. This is probably the best Eric Dolphy record, Out to Lunch. I believe the only one he made on Blue Note. It's a fucking fantastic record. I do already have a reissue of this, but it's an earlier one, and it kind of sounds like shit. And I'm so stoked to have like a nice copy of this that I'm actually freaking out pretty hard right now, and I'm going to put this on really soon. Alright, so this one, fuck, dude. Thanks a lot, Steve, man. This is awesome. I'm so happy about this. God damn. Alright. So I'm freaking out over that. Now, a couple other things I wasn't expecting. Right here, look at that. We got a little mini record. I think it's one of the shiny kinds. Oh my god, it's one of the shiny ones. No, seriously, you got a CD here of Rock or Bust, which I have not heard yet. Not even a song off it. By AC/DC. So this is going to come to work with me and probably get listened to a fair bit. I really liked what I heard off Black Ice. I'd ignored AC/DC for a long time, quite honestly. But I like that shit. Part of that, I think, is just coming around on thinking Brian Johnston's a pretty good singer. Yeah, anyway, this thing, I was not expecting. Let me just show it real quick. Heavy Metal Machine, Pull 1. It's a pretty awesome cover. And a light price. Heavy Metal, light price. Actually, can you see that hype sticker? Is that coming across? Because that's a really funny one. Alright, let's take a look at who's on here together. Some of these guys I know, some I don't. Obsession. Wild Dogs is actually a Shrapnel band that I do like. So, there we go. Holy shit, if this is on Shrapnel, I'm gonna laugh. Titan made a record that's pretty good. TSOL seems a little out of place, though. DC LaCroix I've never heard, actually. Take What You Need by Hurricane. Oh, man. Alright, I'm stoked. I can't wait to check this out. This looks like... See what's awesome about this fucking record is even if it's completely throwaway, it's still enjoyable as hell. I mean, just look at how awesome this is. This is like the kind of shit that, like, dried up when metal went out of fashion. There's, like, these sorts of comps where they, like, threw some shit together and they was, like, promoting it as opposed to sort of trying to make some sort of statement. It was, yeah, that's good shit. I'm really happy. So, once again, thanks a lot, Steve. I totally appreciate it. And, yeah, let me know if there's any particular after, too, because I'm going to keep my eyes open. Alright, so, there we go. I think we've done all our housekeeping in one fell swoop there, and hopefully the video isn't too long. So, thanks for watching, and until next time.